Methods of attack. In this nugget, we're going to discuss one of the coolest features that we need to be familiar with, and that is exactly who are we defending against. The world is a dangerous place when it comes to computers. We see this every day in the headlines, as well as on the news and on network security blogs on the internet. So it's a good idea for us to know exactly who are we defending our networks against, who are these people who want to break our networks, who want to steal our company data, and who want to deface our websites. So in this nugget we will cover the following subjects: types of hackers, and then we will look at tools of the trade, where we will discuss some common network security tools and hacking tools that you want to be familiar with. And then we will lay out steps of an attack, where we will see the common framework that an attacker will take when they want to exploit your network. And then we will close out this nugget with a discussion about some of the common exploits that you need to be familiar with. Types of hackers. So let's discuss some of the type of hackers that we want to be familiar with. And the first type of hacker is a white hat. So what exactly is a white hat hacker? Well, a white hat hacker is the good guys. It's you and me who get up on a daily basis to defend the networks of corporations against the people who want to steal our company's data, deface our company's website, cause us massive amounts of downtime, and potentially huge amounts of financial losses. And we're definitely going to break security for non-malicious reasons as part of a network penetration test, for example, because we want to be able to identify exploits that are available on our networks before the bad guys find them and then use them against us to break into our data. And definitely we're going to seek knowledge of computer systems because we're very passionate about network computer systems, and we get a kick out of finding out how to make software and hardware to come together to make our networks resilient as well as very secure. And we're typically going to be employed in the computer industry these days as a network security engineer, or as a network engineer, or as a network architect, for example. And we are always going to be a strong ethics. We're not going to be the guys that you're going to find hacking your network, because we respect and we understand the time that it takes that goes into administering and designing and deploying a network, and we definitely don't want to go to federal prison for hacking a network. And that's the main thing we want to understand, and what I want to put forth toward you about a white hat hacker. And you may have to explain to people if you tell them I am a white hat hacker, because they're going to look at you kind of strange, because the term hacker has got some really bad press in the last few years because of the people who do things that make the world not such a good place on the internet. And you can be proud and say that I get up every day and I defend networks against the people who want to steal your information and who want to cause you just massive amounts of problems. And that's what a white hat hacker is. Be proud that you're a white hat hacker, and let's continue to lead the charge against the people who want to break our networks. Now, the next type of hacker that we want to look at is a gray hat. So what exactly is a gray hat hacker? Now, a gray hat hacker is someone whose ethics are borderline questionable, because not everything they do is exactly legal. These are the cowboys who shoot from the hip without thinking about the repercussions of what could happen to them if they potentially cause a denial of service attack, for example, or if they hack something without getting authorization. And these are the guys that are kind of in the middle between a white hat and a black hat, and at some point they're going to need to make a decision. Am I going to be a white hat? Am I going to defend the network against the guys that want to harm us? Or am I going to be a black hat that are going to keep our network and security administrators up at night? And the next type of hacker we want to talk about is the black hat. Now, the black hat is definitely the guys that are going to keep us up at night. These are the guys who are going to compromise computer systems without authorization, and they're going to use computer systems to commit crimes such as vandalism, defacement of websites, credit card fraud, identity theft, and they want to steal our company data to sell to competitors. And the next type of hacker that we want to talk about is a script kiddie. So what exactly is a script kiddie? A script kiddie is going to be the non-experts who use automated tools, often written by other network security professionals, for exploits against targets. They're not going to fully understand exactly what those exploits are doing to that target, and they are typically going to be the outcasts of the hacker community because they're going to be the ones that are going to get caught exactly doing these bad things to networks. Now, a good black hat hacker is going to understand how to properly cover his tracks, or to make it very difficult for the people that do network forensics to gather the evidence required to prosecute them. So that is the type of hackers that I want you to be familiar with. Tools of the trade. So let's talk about some of the network security and hacking tools that you need to be familiar with as a network security professional and as a Checkpoint certified security administrator. Now, the first one I want to talk about is Nmap. So what is Nmap? Nmap is a network mapping software designed by a company called insecure.org, and you can still get a free copy of Nmap today from that website. And you need to understand that this is going to be your best friend in network security. It's definitely what the majority of the hackers use, and it's definitely what the majority of the network security professionals out there need to be familiar with. Nmap basically is going to give you the ability to scan large networks or an individual host in a quick fashion using raw IP packets to determine open ports and services that are running on those hosts, as well as the operating system that's running on that host, so that you can identify exactly how you want to attack that network or exploits that you want to patch against. And the next type of tool that we want to be familiar with is Nessus. So what is Nessus? Nessus is a vulnerability scanner that's going to give you the ability to expand upon what you found within Nmap. Let's say if you identified a Windows XP machine that's missing a certain amount of patches, you can use Nessus to potentially scan that same machine and find out exactly what it's vulnerable to. And all the types of plugins that we can put inside of Nessus are going to give us the ability to identify the latest attacks that are available. And this type of software is designed by a company called Tenable Security, and it is also a free download as well. And you can get Nessus up and running either on a Linux, Unix, or a Windows operating system, and that's the same thing for Nmap as well. Now, the next tool that we want to be familiar with is John the Ripper. Now, John the Ripper is a very fast password cracking utility that's going to give you the ability to crack the password hash on Linux, Unix, and Windows systems. It supports Windows XP, Windows 2003, and Windows 2008 as well. And the next thing that we want to be familiar with is Wireshark. Now, Wireshark is a network sniffing software as well as a protocol analyzer. Wireshark has huge benefits for the network security engineer as well as the network engineer and network architect, but it also is used quite a bit by the hackers in the world to gain data off of networks without being detected. Now, what you can do is you can download Wireshark as well, another free download, and you can turn it on to sniff network data. And where they will potentially use a sniffer in their attacks is to try to gather information that's sent in the clear. So if you have usernames and passwords or network mappings and things on your network that are run across the network without being encrypted, using Wireshark, you can capture these packets and these frames, and to be able to have the information that you need to go ahead and log in without authorization and to be able to hack that potential network. And the next type of tool that we want to talk about is Network Stumbler or Kismet. So what are these tools? These tools are wireless network detection tools that are used by a lot of the war drivers and a lot of the network security professionals as well as hackers to detect wireless networks, SSIDs, encryption schemes, and it's a network sniffer as well where you can capture packets from a wireless access point that you can later go on to an application like AirCrack, for example, and be able to crack the encryption key and to be able to gain control of that wireless network so you can log in illegally and potentially use the internet services without authorization, or to be able to hack the machines that are behind the wireless access point. And the last point that I want to talk about for tools here is Metasploit and Saint. Now, the Metasploit and Saint are some very, very powerful tools, and they're probably one of the scariest tools in network security, because it takes the guesswork out of knowing how to hack a network. Metasploit and Saint have plugins available that allow you to identify a host and to be able to load a plugin and launch an attack directly toward a host with minimum knowledge. I recently used Metasploit, for example, to exploit some XP machines in my own testing in my home lab here to see exactly what exactly is going on with the Conficker virus. Now, the Conficker virus got a lot of press over the last few months here in 2009 because of the massive amounts of detections and the massive amounts of destruction that it was causing across the internet. And the thing about I want you to understand fully about these penetration testing tools like Metasploit and Saint, in the hands of people with good ethics, they're great things. But in the hands of people with bad ethics, they can really hurt you. So you want to understand exactly what these tools are, and those are some of the tools of the trade that you need to be familiar with. Steps of attack. So let's discuss the 4 ways a hacker will take to typically hack your network. The first step usually involves footprinting and scanning, where they will detect live systems that are available on your network, and then they will try to perform enumeration where they will determine which vulnerable exploits those potential hosts are available to, and then they will launch the attack against those hosts and take advantage of those vulnerable exploits and be able to do exactly what they want to do to take over that system. And then they will follow up the actual attack with trying to leave the system open for future attacks by using rootkits or backdoors, or they may try to cover their tracks so no one detects exactly what they did to the system when they stole the data. So that's pretty much the 4 basic steps that a hacker will take when they go to attack a network. So let's discuss some of the common exploits that you need to be familiar with as a network security professional and as a Checkpoint certified security administrator, because the hackers are going to use these type of attacks against your network. And the first one I want to talk about is a Trojan horse. So what exactly is a Trojan horse? A Trojan horse is a program which seems to be doing one thing but is actually doing another. And a Trojan horse can be set up to allow an attacker to gain a backdoor into your system to come back and exploit the system later on. Now, typically where you will see this is, let's say you download a game from the internet. It looks like you're playing a cool game, but in reality, although you see a GUI window, but behind the scenes it's opening up a port that's going to allow an attacker to come in over the internet through that standard port and to be able to attack your system. So that's kind of what a Trojan horse is. Its job is to fake you out and think you're doing one thing when it's actually doing another. And the next type of exploit that we need to be familiar with is a virus. Now, a virus is a self-replicating worm that spreads itself by copying copies of itself into other executable code and other documents. So that's basically what a virus is. Now, the next one we want to talk about is a worm. And much like a virus, a worm is a self-replicating process, but a worm differs from a virus in that it propagates through the computer network without user intervention. Because the big difference between the two is, with a virus, you're going to have to execute some kind of bit of code to kick off the process. And with a worm, it'll just basically take off on its own, and once it gets into one system, it's going to try to identify other systems that it can exploit on your network. And the next type of exploit we want to talk about is a keylogger. So what exactly is a keylogger? Well, a keylogger is going to sound exactly like it sounds. A keylogger is set up on a system to allow the attacker to be able to capture all the data that's typed into that machine via the keyboard. A keylogger will typically be running for a few days, and then the attacker will try to come back maybe through a back door that they set up via a Trojan horse or a rootkit to be able to come inbound and steal that data to use as an exploit against that company later on. And now the next thing we want to look at is a rootkit. So what exactly is a rootkit? A rootkit, a lot like a Trojan horse, is set up to fake the user into not being able to detect exactly what it is. Typically, a rootkit will replace binaries and DLLs on your system to make it look like it's totally a legitimate process, where in reality, it's actually something that's malicious that is going to harm your system. A rootkit is one of the hardest things to detect a network security. And once you get it on your system, there's only specialized software out there. One of them is Rootkit Revealer, for one that I've used, to help you remove those systems. And usually it'll take a full format of the system and then baselining your operating system using applications like Tripwire or different things to watch for changes in your operating system to make sure that a rootkit doesn't return. And the next type of attack I want to look at is social engineering. So what is social engineering? Let's say, for example, I pick up the phone today and I call into your HR department or your accounting department, for example, and I say, hey, this is Bob from IT. And I get Sandy. And we say, hey, Sandy, Bob from IT here. Well, we're doing some testing on the network, and we need to be able to identify exactly what's going on with our HR database and our accounting data. Now, I just need your username and password to make sure you're not going to have any problems after I make these changes on the network. Now, to Sandy, who may be an untrained professional and who doesn't understand that she shouldn't give her username and password out to people, she may give up that information, and that's going to essentially allow the attacker to perform a social engineering attack to gain that data. That way they can directly log into the systems and to be able to hack the network. And that is essentially what social engineering is. So I do encourage you, if you're going to be responsible for network security in an organization, to try to put together some kind of program to educate all your business units about social engineering, which is essentially taking advantage of people, because they're going to think that, in Sandy's example, she thinks she was talking from Bob from IT, but she was actually talking to, Joe the hacker down the street. And that's essentially what social engineering is. And the last type of exploit that I want you to be familiar with is a spoofing attack. And where we see spoofing quite a bit is, let's say, in website redirection. Let's say you get on your computer and you type in www.google.com. Now, you may think that you're going to the real google.com, but with a spoofing attack, it's going to redirect your web application to a fake website where they're going to ask you to enter credentials, or they're going to look for what you're searching for. This is very popular in the banking industry, and I've seen a number of attacks about this where they will redirect you to a fake banking website that will ask you to enter your account number, your username, your password, and once they have that information, they'll be able to use that information to log into your accounts and steal money, and to be able to transfer your money to accounts that you would normally, not send that money to, because they're essentially hacking your bank account. So those are some of the more common exploits that you need to be familiar with. And of course, there's a ton of exploits out there, but I just want to hit the high point and help you understand these are the types of things and the more popular ones that the hackers are going to try to do to you. In this nugget, we covered the methods of attack. We looked at the types of hackers that we want to be familiar with. And then we looked at some common tools of the trade that you need to know about to be a network security professional, and to also defend against the hackers that are going to be attacking your networks. And then we looked at some common steps of an attack, where I presented a general 4-step process that most attacks will take to take over your network. And then we looked at some common types of exploits that you need to be familiar with. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.